You ready to go, Tanya?
Yep, we are live streaming right now, just a couple seconds before we get to 5 o'clock.
Good evening. This Township of Selwyn regular council meeting of September the 13th, 2022 will come to order. On behalf of Selwyn Township Council and staff, we would like to express deepest condolences to the royal family on the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Queen Elizabeth II presided over the United Kingdom and Commonwealth, including Canada, for over 70 years and dedicated her life to her royal duty. We commend her for her lifetime of devotion to public service. She was a woman of quiet influence and measurable grace. Her legacy will endure. Please join me for a moment of silence in her memory. Thank you. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga and Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. Now we should observe a moment of silence so the council, staff, and members of the public can quietly reflect on our duty to the community that we are trying to serve. Thank you. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of council, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, please note that in the minutes. And our minutes of the regular council meeting of August the 9th, 2022. Can I have a mover? Anita, seconded by Donna, all in favor. That is carried. Is there any discussion of the minutes? Seeing none, we will go on to our staff introductions. And Mike, if you would like to introduce the two staff members.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that opportunity. I'm going to introduce Jerry Joplin first, who's joined us within the last month. I guess the time has flown, it's just over a month. Jerry Joplin grew up in Selwyn Township, as you may have guessed from his name. After he attended Fleming and Trent, he joined the township of Merrickville, Wolford, and has worked there since leaving school. We were fortunate enough to be able to woo him back to the township that he grew up in, and he's been doing a great job in the month that he's been with us. So Jerry, if you'd like to say a few words.
Don't see him.
It's Tanya here. I know Jerry is unfortunately has not logged in. So perhaps if we can go on to equipment operator Graham Young. I know Graham is here while we wait for Dawson to arrive.
Okay, well, Rick, if you'd like to introduce the employee. Thank you.
There we go. Hey, hi everybody. Yeah, so Blake Knox, he's retiring at the end of the month. So we put out for a job, and Graham Young applied, and we've hired him. He's been with us a little over a week now. Now Graham is from Ennis, so we got another local boy here. He comes with some experience at the county and Duro Dummer with snow plowing and all the activities. So he'll be used to this line of work. Anyways, Graham, did you want to say anything?
And can we see you, Graham, please? There you go.
Hi guys. Yeah, I'm really enjoying so far, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the future here. It's a really good group, so yeah, I'm excited.
Excellent. Well, welcome. Thank you. And we'll go back to Mike. It looks like Jerry's here now.
Yeah, if council wouldn't mind, through you, Madam Chair, if council wouldn't mind to let Jerry say a few words. I said a lot of kind things about you, Jerry, so you can follow that up with a few words of your own if you'd like.
There we go. Sorry. I apologize there for the delay. My computer had a bit of issues, so I'm on my phone, but thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure to meet you all. And I've been here for a few weeks now, and so far I think everything's going quite well and I'm enjoying it. Mike's a great guy to work with, as well as the rest of the team. So I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. It's very good to hear. Thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you.
And Mike.
And we have our third local boy, who's been with us for a few years now on a part-time basis. His name is Dawson Lickfold. Again, you might recognize the name as an Ennismore resident, grew up here, and has worked in the arena really since he could stand. He's been a scorekeeper, he's been a referee, he worked a summer job for us. He was one of our summer placement students. He's worked part-time as an operator for us and as a rink attendant. Dawson Lickfold also attended Fleming and now is finished. And when Karen retired as of September 30th, we were able to bring on him to shadow her. And you'll see that she's winding down now, doing a few days a week because she's got some holidays to use as well. But Dawson has joined us full time. And if you'd like to say a few words, Dawson, it'd be great to let you introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Dawson Lickfold. I just got in for this. I'm looking forward to working with all of you, and I hope we'll be able to get along well with many years to come.
Excellent. Well, welcome, Dawson. Thank you very much. Thank you. So we have a public meeting at 5:30. We're not there yet. So if with the indulgence of council, we have no questions for question period. So we can move down to 4A, the municipal officers and staff reports. Janice, if you would like to present the Molina study final draft report.
Yes, thank you very much. So yes, what you have before you tonight is the final report of the Lakefield Marina Utilization Study as completed by Monteith Brown. I would again like to take the opportunity to thank Monteith Brown for all their work on this project. As always, they've been great to work with, very thorough, very professional, and just a pleasure to work with them. There are a number of staff from Monteith Brown, Todd, Kent, Sabrina, Ann, and Nod are all with us tonight. So if there's any questions that you have, they're here and available to take your questions. Just a little bit of background, as you may recall, the draft report came to council on August 9th, and then it was posted for public feedback from August 12th to 31st. We did receive a limited number of responses to that posting, and those are summarized on a new page in the report. It's page number 34. really, there were no other changes to the report that came about as a result of the comments received. So it's other than that change, it's the same as what you have seen in August. When we did receive the report in August, council did express some interest in having staff come back along with the final report, just with some recommendations for you to consider around implementation timelines for the recommendations. So we did pull that information together for you. I won't go over it in detail. I'm sure that you've had a chance to look at it, but we do have a summary of the recommendations and then our recommended implementation timelines for you to have a look at and to provide us with your feedback.
Okay, thank you, Janice. So I see that the group is here and I echo what Janice has said. It's been a pleasure working with the group and your report's very thorough, and it can't be said that we haven't done a lot of public consultation because it sure has been done. So are there any questions that either the group or of Janice from council? Andy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of points. On recommendation number 6, which is about looking at a booking system, automated booking system. I know that Orca invested a significant amount of money in the last couple of years in developing a system. And since they're going to be doing that over at the campground, that we might want to have a discussion with them to see if there's any synergy there. You know, maybe we don't have to reinvent the wheel. It might be that it's not possible, but I think it would probably be worth doing. That would be one point. And the second point had to do with recommendation 5 and a number of other recommendations related to, and their general theme are all the business opportunities that are presented there. And so I just in going through them, we seem to have put that implementation last, in the sense that we're doing other things first. And clearly I understand we can't implement everything all at the same time. That's fair enough. But there are a few of the business ones that are really, in my view, straightforward. Some of them are really complex, and I understand why they're going to be a while, but some of them are straightforward. So for instance, way signing away from the dock is you know, pretty straightforward. I don't know if we really need to hold up for a whole lot of time on that. There's a couple of others there. If we want to add, you know, more picnic tables or whatever, as a, you know, that's something that we can probably do earlier rather than later. I understand that if we're looking at forming business partnerships, those are going to probably take us a little while. Just some thoughts, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And Janice, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so I think as we were working our way through the recommendations, we just saw that there were a few there that number 5, 17, and 18, I think maybe are the ones that we're referring to. And we just saw that maybe there were some really good ideas, and maybe I'll let Angie speak to it a little bit, just how we might pull those ones together and work with the business community to make sure that we are reflecting what is going to work best for the community as a whole, and maybe have the EDBC involved in that process. So maybe Ange might just want to give a little bit of detail in terms of the thoughts around what that project might look like.
Yeah, thank you, Janice and members of council. Yeah, we actually, we're doing a project right now. Council will remember we got some Trillium money to take a look at some fundraising and sponsorship strategies, and we've hired Strexer Harrop. We actually did that. We had council approve that work at the last council meeting. So we think that this is a really good tie-in where we could look at signage, promotion, marketing, the use of pop-ups and food sales, the use of that public marina space. So there are certain things that you're quite right could be done right off the hop, but we really want to take a really comprehensive look at how we can better tie the marina users to our community amenities and community businesses. And we think we can do that in combination with that other work that's being done right now by Strexer Harrop. and we can get the EDBC involved with that as well. So we think there's some good opportunities for some input from that group too.
Andy, anything you want to add?
The only thing I might suggest is when we pass the motion that we just, that we add a sentence or something that says that we will try to implement some of the business solutions at the earliest practical time. So I'd word it that way, and I'll leave it to staff, obviously, to make the decision about what's practical or not. But I would just feel more comfortable just to add that on to the motion.
Okay, and are there any other questions from members of council? Did someone second the recommendation? Donna? All in favor? It's carried, thank you. All right, well, we're still not at 5:30. So let's move on. Thank you very much to Monty Brown and the team.
Thank you, members of council. We appreciate it. Take care.
We'll move on to Robert Kelly in 4B, Bill 109 amendment.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. The report I have on the agenda this evening is sort of our next step in moving forward with the changes to the Planning Act that affect both site plan control and zoning bylaw amendment applications. If council will recall, earlier in the spring, updates were made to the Planning Act to implement refund of planning application fees effective for applications applied for on or after January 1st, 2023. Our next step in addressing that is to looking to have an update to the official plan that's in place, because staff feel that the province won't have the new official plan approved in time. So we're looking at having sort of the word that's being the words and clauses that apply to pre-consultation in the new OP to be added to the current OP, so that we can put the steps in place to protect us from situations where we would be subject to refunding application fees. If council or anyone has any questions with regard to anything in the report, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
We've got hands all over the place. And you don't know first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Robert, have you spoken to anybody at the provincial level with some of your suggestions, and do they are they agreeable to it, or are we going to be precedent setting people again, as we have so often in the past?
So this OP amendment is actually something that us and 3 of the other lower tiers of Peterborough County are working with the county to get this implemented, and other municipalities that the county has drawn some guidance or lead from, or such places as I think the city of Hamilton and or maybe Oakville. So other major cities are approaching this in the same manner.
Okay, Andy?
So thank you for the report. Just to make sure it's clear in my own mind. So what you're doing essentially is saying, when we have to depend on a third party to provide us information, that we won't start the clock until all of that information is in, including a completion of a peer review where necessary on certain reports. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's correct, Andy. That puts the approval process essentially just the staff preparation and issuance when it comes to site plan control. So all of the back and forth that would happen, which is where we run into problems with the timeframes. Peer review process can take upwards of 3 to 4 weeks for each submission. And the timeframes that are set out, we would often run past those timeframes. And if we had our consultants working on behalf of us provide feedback to an applicant, the applicant could not be diligent in getting a response back to us, and therefore we would exceed our timeframes, which would, if under the current system, would subject us to having to refund fees for things that are beyond our control. So if the peer review component is moved to part of the complete application determination, then the timeframes that staff are subjected to would be just coordinating and getting the approval in place.
So in essence, if it's under our control, then it's appropriate to want to make sure that we get it, but we're not going to be held responsible for things that are outside of our control, what other people do, in essence, right?
That's a good summation of the approach we're taking.
Yeah. The second question, and it just in reference to a comment you made, is there any thing on which you're basing your perspective, other than perhaps some general experience, that our official plan at the county, which we submitted at the end of June, won't be acted on for approval 6 months later?
No, we're just being proactive to ensure that if it takes the province 6, 12, or 18 months to approve our official plan, that we have the tools in place come January 1st.
Okay, so you're just being prudent. You don't have any information. Okay, thank you.
Lana.
Yes, thank you. Through you to Robert. I won't name any names, but I think you'll understand my question. We had one property sent to the OLT because we were determined to be late because we were waiting for peer reviews. So would this prevent that sort of situation happening again?
Yes, because that would require them to have approval from our peer reviewers before they apply for their application. So if there's multiple rounds of review that are necessary to meet an application parameters that are acceptable to the township and the township's consultants, all of that back and forth work would be sort of essentially taken care of before they submit their complete application.
Okay, and I'm pretty sure you know the property I'm talking about.
So that particular application you're referring to, we had provided comments back and we never received a resubmission. And instead were appealed for not meeting our timeframes.
Okay, thank you. So this would prevent that.
That's correct, Anna.
Thank you.
And I actually have a question for you. How long do you anticipate the official plan amendment will take?
We're, as I had stated earlier, we were working with 3 of the other lower tiers and the county to diligently get this through. I believe that the county council is virtually going to hold a public meeting on, I believe their council date was October 19th. They were looking for a resolution of support, and being that the lower tiers are the applicant, we were seeking to obtain that prior to the public meeting. And if county council receives those, they would approve the amendment, I believe, on that date.
All right, thank you very much. So is there someone who would like to make a recommendation before us? Anita and Andy, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. So, We have 6 minutes left before we can go to our public meeting. Let's move on to the consent items. Is there any that people wish to hold? Donna,
5D.
5B. Any, oh, do you have another one?
No, did you say B or D?
I thought you said B.
No, D is in Donna.
D is in Donna, 5D. Okay, thank you. Anita?
5A and 5C.
A and 5C. And is that it?
Yeah.
I see your hand.
6A 12.
6A 12. All right. Let's go to the first one that was pulled is 5A.
This is with regards to the county transportation master plan. It talks about the Lakefield roadway network and the discussion or the suggestion about a bridge crossing the Otonabee River. And of course, it's been talked about for quite a while. Do we know what the next steps would be with regards to that? And when a study would be undertaken?
Andy is actually part of the transportation master plan at the county. I don't know, Andy, if you want to weigh in.
Well, it's there. You're right, Anita. It's been talked about for some time. It's incorporated in the transportation master plan so that estimated costs were used to calculate the development fees at the county level. So we're already trying to consider that. My understanding, and staff, please help me if I say something incorrect here, is that there will need to be extensive studies that need to happen, and there needs to be extensive public consultation as part of those studies. And maybe Janice or somebody would want to add to that.
Yeah, I think you're correct, Andy. And as you mentioned, the county DC that was just approved has included a study that would identify the exact location of the roadway and the proposed bridge. Of course, we would like to see that happen sooner rather than later because it is, right in the midst of the Lakefield fence area, and before, we have current development applications ongoing there, but for any future applications, it would have an impact. So we would like to see that work completed. Of course, with this type of a project, I think we'd be looking at an EA as well. So that is a time-consuming process, and certainly would include consultation with the township.
And Andy, I know if Jerry was here, he would comment on Ward Street widening. Are we sure that 5 lanes isn't overkill? Right now, we have 3 lanes partway through Ward and only 2 with the rest of it. And if a third lane was put in there for turning purposes, would that not suffice to deal with the traffic concerns?
Yeah, the way I understand the process, and I'll let staff weigh in, is that what will happen is that the environmental assessment process, which colleagues may remember we dealt with right at the beginning of this term of council, has to be reopened and redone, because when it was originally done, it was done assuming that there would eventually be a bypass. Well, the bypass is off the books, and therefore that environmental assessment will be redone, and there will be opportunities again for public input and for an assessment of what, from an engineering perspective, actually needs to occur. I believe that's the process. And again, ask Janice to confirm that I've got that correct.
Yes, again, I would say that you're correct. So that EA was essentially paused when the decision was made to refer that matter to the Transportation Master Plan. So that process would be resumed. The other thing that would happen is once the Transportation Master Plan is approved, there are a number of areas, this being one of them, the transportation protection corridors. So once the master plan is approved, there are a number of items that would have to be implemented through the official plan. So it's my understanding that it would be the county's intention to take all of those items and commence the required official plan amendment as well to institute the protection corridor.
Okay, so I believe that the comments you made, Janice, in your report are valid. Will they be sent along to county council to go into the file?
Yeah, for sure. I can send a copy of the report along to county staff for sure.
Okay, and does the rest of council agree with what the comments that Janice has made? Okay. So, do we don't need a mover and seconder on that specifically, or do we?
I think if you'd like it to be sent to the county, for sure, we could have a resolution. Really,
yeah, that's what I was. Okay, so Andy will move it, seconded by Anita. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. It appears that it's 5:30, so we're going to jump back to our public meeting for the zoning bylaw amendment. C 0522-8 Carolyn Street. Here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the Township of Selwyn tonight is holding a public meeting to consider an application to amend the zoning bylaw for the Township of Selwyn in accordance with Section 34 of the Planning Act. The prescribed notice of public meeting was provided by prepaid first-class mail to all residents within 120-meter radius of the subject property to the application, as well as by way of a sign posted on the subject lands. The notice was provided via email to prescribed ministries and agencies. The notice is also available on the township's website. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Selwyn before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the council of the township to the Ontario Land Tribunal, nor can a person or public body be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So tonight, as you mentioned, this is for a zoning bylaw amendment, which is a condition of consent to sever that has been granted provisional consent by the County of Peterborough through Land Division file number B84-21. This is at 8 Caroline Street in Lakefield. The subject property is currently designated low density residential and is zoned community facility exception 4 zone. The community facility exception zone was put in place to allow the former owner of the property to operate a daycare center. This daycare center is no longer in operation. The current owner does not wish to operate such a facility and just wants the subject property divided for residential purposes only. The severed parcel meets all the lot area and frontage requirements of the R1 zone, so it'll be rezoned to R1. The retained parcel is we're going to do a special exception zone on it to recognize deficient setbacks and lot coverage. Lot coverage is at about 31.5%, which exceeds the 30% allowable. There's also some deficient, like I said, setbacks to the existing dwelling on the retained parcel. Also, I neglected in my report to mention that lot area and frontage for the retained parcel is also undersized, so that'll be recognized in the zoning amendment as well. In terms of size, it's only marginal. The lot area required is 510 square meters, where the proposed is 486 square meters. And the lot frontage for a corner lot such as this is 18 meters, and the proposed is for 13.52 meters. I find through my report that you have that the zoning amendment is consistent with provincial policy statement and conforms to the growth plan for the Great O'Gorman Horseshoe, as well as conforming to the official plan for the Township of Selwyn. I do recommend this zoning bylaw amendment. We have comments from of no concern from the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board, as well as Enbridge Gas. And following this report, writing of this report, we also received comments of no concern from the Autonomy Region Conservation Authority. We have no public comments received either for or against, written comments, that is, for or against this application at this time. And those are my comments in regard to this application. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take those.
Thank you very much. And no one registered to speak with regards to this for or against, correct?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from council or from the audience? Seeing none. And Donna, all in favor? It's carried, thank you. All right, next on the agenda is Mr. Stigenga. Is he in attendance, or are we going to be hearing from Veronica Mason?
Hi there. Yes, Richard sends his apologies that he's not available to attend this evening, but I'm happy to do so in his place. And the presentation that we have for you today is your 2021 financial statements. I do have a PowerPoint presentation to share. So on your screen, you'll see the first page of our presentation. We're talking today about your financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2021. So in your package, you'll have the full financial statements. This presentation will give you some of the most important highlights from the financial statements. The most important highlight, of course, being the independent auditor's report. So it's a fairly lengthy part of the document. It's about 2 pages long, but the most important thing that you would be looking for is our audit opinion. And in this case, our opinion is that the financial statements are presented fairly in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. That is what you've seen in the past and what you would have expected to be told this evening as well. In order to reach that opinion, we do go through a number of audit procedures, including review of all minutes of council, substantive testing. So that takes the form of sampling of transactions and balances, analytical review, and assessment of management estimates in the financial statements. We also review your systems documentation and do related control testing for your significant accounting streams. In your case, those would include your revenues, disbursements, payroll, and journal entries. And at this time, the audit is nearly complete. The outstanding matters that are remaining are council's approval of the financial statements, which we anticipate to be this evening. After that has occurred, we'll be asking management to sign a representation letter and return that to us. And we also always request confirmation of the township's lawyers. So there will be a confirmation letter coming from them shortly as well. And we're pleased to say that we had no significant difficulties during the course of the audit. We didn't have to make any changes to the initial audit plan. We never have any disagreements or difficulties with management, and this year, of course, was no exception. Excellent cooperation, as always, from management and staff. One item to point out is that there is still a note in the financial statements for uncertainty caused by the pandemic. And of course, like everyone else, we hope that the day will come soon when that will no longer need to be included in anybody's financial statements. There were no uncorrected audit differences noted for us to bring to your attention this evening either. And then to get into the numbers, so we are talking about 2021, and that's the column on the left. We do have a 5-year history so that you can get a sense of the overall trends in the township over the past few years. The first slide here is your financial assets as at December 31st. And as always, your most significant financial assets are your cash and investments that you have on hand in bank accounts and investment accounts. Your other significant assets include your accounts receivable and your taxes receivable. And the taxes receivable, I know you'll be interested in your statistics concerning that. The 2021 balance of taxes receivable was 4% of the total amounts levied, compared to 5% in 2020. And both years, all of the years on the 5-year history, well below the province's 10% benchmark. Your total financial assets at December 31st were about 27.8 million. And this just gives you a graphical representation of those numbers. In this case, 2021 being on the right-hand column. You can see a gradual increase in cash in green over the years. And you can also see the relative sizes, that is your most significant asset by far. Your financial liabilities as at December 31st include accounts payable and accrued liabilities, deferred revenue in your obligatory reserve fund. So that includes development charge fund, your parkland fund, and your federal gas tax. And you do have some other deferred revenue, which the difference there is the other deferred revenues are specific grants that have a restriction on them to be spent for a specific purpose, and they're held in deferred revenue until such time as they're spent. You do have some long-term debt, which has been decreasing over the years as the regularly scheduled debt repayments are made. And you also have landfill closure and post-closure liability and employee future benefits payable. And the important thing to note about those last two items, the landfill liability and the employee future benefits, are that those are items where you pay as you go. So you have a liability on the financial statements, but you raise the funds for those as they become due, as you make those, as you pay for those expenses in the future. Your total liabilities at the end of December 2021 were about 8.5 million. And again, just to see the trend there, accounts payable and accrued liabilities are in orange. They increase and decrease as depending on your activity, especially construction projects within the township. Your obligatory reserve funds are the second highest there in green. So when you take your financial assets less your financial liabilities, that gives the first amount on the slide, the net financial assets, 19.3 million, which is a strong positive number. And then that's followed by your non-financial assets, which are, in your case, tangible capital assets, $64 million. Now, those are, your tangible capital assets are shown at net book value, which is your historical cost less accumulated amortization up to December 31st. And the final number on that page there, the 83.3 million, is your total accumulated surplus at the end of the year. We have a breakdown slide of what makes that up, because of course that includes reserves and all types of surplus. And this slide, I know this has a lot of information on it. It's your consolidated statement of operations. The first section shows the total revenue and total expense and what the total surplus is according to the financial statements. So these are stated as required by public sector accounting standards. So you can see there, it looks like you've budgeted to a surplus. But of course, when you set your operating budget, you're not budgeting towards a $400,000 surplus. So we provide the on the slide here an operating surplus reconciliation, so you can see the items that reconcile from the public sector accounting standards to your actual operating budget. The most significant items in that relate to tangible capital asset transactions, long-term debt transactions, and reserve transactions. So some of those affect the operating surplus, but not the PSAB surplus, and some of them go the other way. And then just, I mentioned the 83.3 million. So that's in orange at the very last column. This just gives you an idea of your net book value of TCA versus your accumulated surplus. It shows you that quite a bit of your accumulated surplus really is spoken for by the net book value of TCA. But also, you know, in some cases, a municipality may have net book value of TCA greater, where the blue would be greater than the orange if they had a fair amount of debt associated with their TCA. And that is not the case, obviously, for Selwyn in the past 5 years. And another graph for you, this just shows you the 5-year trend of your total revenues in green, your total expenses in blue, and your annual surplus in gray. Those are, again, as stated under public sector accounting standards. And then we have some of the detailed financial information. So this slide has your revenue budget versus actual versus 2020. You can see that you had budgeted revenue of 19.2 million and actual of 21.7 million. The biggest contributor to that difference is the line about 2/3 of the way down called contributed tangible capital assets of about 1.8 million. So that's not an item that you would budget for. Those are assets that you've assumed from developers. So infrastructure assets that have been transferred to the township during 2021. And then this slide kind of gives a better idea of the relative sizes of those various sources of revenue. So as in previous years, your most significant sources of revenue are property taxation, which is about 50% for 2021, user charges, and grants from the province of Ontario. And then we have the details of your expenses. These are broken down by function. You had budgeted about $18.8 million in expenses, and the actual came in at about 17.8. With you know, the items coming in under budget, there's not a lot of large items that I can point to tell you it's really kind of across the board, a lot of small savings or you know, small items that were coming in under budget that really have added up, as you can see, in small amounts across the various functions. And again, this is a similar breakdown to previous years, protection services being your largest expenditure, followed by transportation and environmental. And this is the same 17.8 million broken down by object, so by type of expense. And again, you can see kind of across the board, there's some ups and downs, but not a lot of very large, other than in materials. You can see that that there's some large savings there, and that's across various departments. And in terms of relative amounts spent in those categories, salaries and benefits being your largest, followed by contracted services and materials. And then this brings us to our promised slide about your accumulated surplus. So the 83.3 million that we spoke about earlier is, it includes 63.4 million that's already invested in tangible capital assets. There are some small deficits coming from community centers, arenas, and fire services. And then you have unfunded liabilities for the landfill closure and post-closure costs and the employee future benefits. So as I mentioned before, those are unfunded now because you will raise funds for them when you need to make the payments associated with them. And then you do have 22.1 million set aside in reserves and reserve funds. So those increased by about 634,000 over the 2020 balance. I know that a common question that councils like to ask is whether they have enough in reserves and how healthy their reserves are. And I know our answer isn't always 100% satisfying to you, because of course that does depend on your future needs, what you've got those funds earmarked for, and whether the funds you've got set aside are sufficient for those future projects, kind of goes hand in hand with your asset management planning. You should note that included in those reserves, of course, are some specific reserves for water and sewer that are set aside for those specific uses as well. And of course, it's always good to have a healthy level of reserves on hand when things happen, such as a pandemic or unpredictable items happen. It does protect your cash flow under those. So yeah, it's been a good thing for you to have. And I do have I have a picture of this for you as well. Now the reserves on the full financial statements are broken down in more detail here than the 4 categories we've got, but we've got the major categories here, and you can kind of see the trends, and especially the last 3 years through the pandemic that you have managed to keep your reserve levels stable or increasing. You had some significant tangible capital asset additions during the year. They were broken up. You had quite a bit under water and sewer, about 2.1 million, 2.5 on roadways, and then about 800,000 on facilities and 364,000 on vehicles and equipment. These numbers do include the contributed assets that we spoke of earlier. Those are included across several categories, some in facilities, water and sewer, and roadways were all areas where you had contributed assets during the year. And this is to give you an idea of whether you're keeping up with your tangible capital asset needs. So blue is amortization expense during the year, and orange is TCA additions during the year. If you had a large number of years where the amortization in blue was exceeding your TCA additions in orange, that would be worth looking into why that was, because it might indicate that a municipality is using up their capital assets faster than they're replacing them. But as you can see, that's not been the case. And another way of looking at tangible capital assets, just the useful life that's remaining. So green is the remaining useful life, and red is the amount that they're amortized already. So you could see you're skewing fairly new in terms of facilities, and you're a little more than halfway utilized in vehicles and equipment and in roadways. And again, newer assets showing in water and sewer and in your solar power systems. And then a 5-year trend. So I spoke earlier about the 19.3 million net financial assets. You can see the trend there that's been increasing over the past 5 years. And that does bring me to the end of our presentation today.
Thank you, Veronica. Are there any questions from council? Andy?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First of all, I just begin my comments by complimenting and congratulating staff for having a clean audit. That's it's always good news from the council's perspective to see that certification come in. So I very much appreciate that. And Veronica, excuse me, because I missed it in your explanation. So I'm going to ask you to go over it again.
Okay.
So it's understanding exactly what the contributed tangible capital asset amount of $1.837 million is.
Yes. So those are assets that are built by developers in a subdivision that are assumed by the municipality.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So it's not a cash transaction. They're just transferred over when they're put into service.
So when they built a road to the municipal standard and we're now going to take it into our road network, that's where it shows up on the ballot.
Exactly.
Okay, good. That makes some sense to me. The other thing I want to mention, and this is really directed at Lane, and it's something that I raised on a number of occasions, and I think it becomes even more important now that we're in an environment after years of low interest rates to higher interest rates. We have close to $20 million of cash. That doesn't mean that we've got 20 million to spend, but we are holding that, and we do that on a consistent basis. And so I just want to make sure that we maximize the use of that cash through short-term investments. 2 or 3% annually on the kind of cash balances we maintain is a lot of money, and it can be used to mitigate the amount of money that we need to draw from the levy or can be available for expenditures. And so this is in part to you, Veronica, but I guess it's really more to Lane to assure that we're looking at and will in the relatively short term maximize that cash that we have on hand.
Sure, I can weigh in on that to you, Madam Chair. Definitely, it's as noted in a previous Baker Tilly presentation not too long ago. We have increased cash balances over the past years, and that is in keeping with our capital planning cycle. So those reserves will definitely be used over the next while. But there is a kind of a core amount in that cash balance that could be converted into midterm investments and garner better rates. So yeah, there's just been a number of reasons why we haven't been able to get out at that task. It's definitely my hope that prior to the budget process commencing and really getting into our this year's audit in earnest, that I can kind of get some resourcing issues taken care of in the department and put together a project that can get the procedures in place so that I feel comfortable with those investments. And I would agree with the Mayor's comments. Given that balance, that can have an impact not only on our taxation levy, but on user fees related to water and sewer as well, because there is a large portion there of reserves as well. So no, I appreciate those comments and definitely on our radar for sure.
Thank you, Lee.
And I don't know if there are any other questions. I don't have the full screen of the other council members. Any other questions, Donna and Ida? All right. Again, thank you, Veronica. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
And if I can have a motion to receive the deputation. Anita and Donna, I'm in favor. It's carried. Thank you.
And do we need to approve the statements as well, or is that?
We're going to do that when we deal with Lane's.
Report. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so I'm just saying we're moving on to Lane now.
Yes, to you, Madam Chair. The report really just outlines the process that we went through, reiterates what Veronica has went through on her presentation. And I did just want to say that the finance team has worked with Veronica for many years, and I was really pleased that she had the opportunity to present tonight's statements. Really, Council's acceptance of this consolidated statement and the accounts taken into the PSAB environment to finish the process for the 2021 statement. So I don't have anything further to add to that, Madam Chair.
Okay, but we are in fact approving the statements, correct?
That's correct. The recommendation as provided in my report would accept my report and then also approve the statements as presented.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions on that? Mover and a seconder. Mandy and Donna in favor. That's carried. Thank you very much. All right, now we will go back to the consent items and we're jumping around here today. I believe the next one that was pulled was 5C. Anita, correct?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's this is with regards to the transit service agreement with the Trent Central Students Association regarding the link. I think it's great. My question would be for staff. So it says the Trent students accounted for 53% of trips taken on the link. And so their service year is $55,000 for this upcoming season. What's sort of our annual operating cost or budgeted operating cost for the link? So with what Trent would be paying as well as what the overall budgeted amount is.
Mary?
Thanks through you, Madam Chair. I might actually look to Angela Chittick to answer regarding the budget, given that this is my first year with this service. So if Angela didn't mind.
I'll just look that up if you had any other questions for Lily in the meantime.
Any other questions for Lily? Seeing none, no, just wait on your answer, Andy.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I'm just looking up the budget. Our contracted costs for 2022 were about $390,000.
Okay, thank you very much, Andy.
Okay.
Now we'll move on to 5D. Donna? You pulled that?
Yes, thank you. Just a question to Robert. I think I received at least one of these septic capacity calls, and the people were concerned about the number of people using the water and the septic system. And I realized that we report it to public health, but do public health ever report back to us to inform us that indeed there is an issue? Or do they just take care of it and we never really know?
Through you, Madam Chair, when public health does do their enforcement, they will provide us with a response back as to what happens at that location. To date, we're still waiting to find out what the next steps are with those two properties that were identified as receiving complaints against them for last month.
Okay, so if we don't hear, like possibly the short-term rental is winding down, but it may go on into the winter as well. If we don't hear within a couple of months, would we follow up with public health?
Yes, we do have our working group, and any complaints that have been raised, we do continue to discuss them to see the complaints through.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to 6A12. Andy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to, I don't know if the chief is here today, but I was wondering how things were going for us in Selwyn with the new certification process for our fire department.
Yeah, I haven't received a whole lot of detailed information back from the fire department, but for sure they are reviewing what the ministry has laid out. I think there still are some concerns around what the training is going to look like, the time that would be required to get through some of the training. They're definitely working through the process of the legacy process and trying to understand what that process is going to look like against waiting on some information from that. So there really does continue to be quite a bit of information that we're waiting for in order to be able to determine what this actually looks like for Selwyn. The ministry has announced a bit of funding that will be available to municipalities. It isn't a great big pot of funding, and it is very prescribed in terms of what would be eligible for funding. The likelihood that we would be eligible is probably pretty small. So I do believe in my last conversation with the chief that the association is still working through some concerns and trying to have some things addressed with the ministry.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've been through the consent items. So with the exception of 5A, which we've already passed, I need a mover and seconder for the balance of the consent items. Donna and Anita, all in favor? Mary, thank you. There are no committee reports or petitions. We'll move on to council portfolio updates. Donna, would you like to begin, please?
Thank you very much. the link was first on my list, and so you did receive the one report from Lily earlier. And I have the August stats for ridership, so Route 31, 330, Route 32, 158. So hopefully now that Trent is back in full force, that we'll see those numbers go up. The library, we haven't had a meeting. We didn't have a meeting in July or August, and our first meeting will be before our next council meeting. But last night I didn't see it, but on Stu's News on checks, they had some, well, photos and advertising of the makerspace in Lakefield. And I haven't been told that it's open yet. And I don't know if Andy knows that or not, because we haven't gotten together yet. So, you know, Andy?
I don't, Donna.
Okay. But it will be open shortly if it's not open yet. Sorry that I missed the recreation meeting last Wednesday. I didn't have it in my calendar and I made other plans, and I was hoping Jerry would be here to report, but he's not. So Mike, was there any highlights from that meeting?
I threw you, Madam Chair. With it winding down and them all going to be looking to either wind up their commitment or ask if they can or apply to be back on the committee. It was a pretty quiet one. We did talk about the marina utilization and went through the draft report, not the final report, which they'll get after this meeting. We spoke on the events and what happened in 2022, and a little bit about some of the activities in the parks, some tree issues, a few things like that. But it was a pretty quiet one. It wasn't overly long, and we barely had quorum.
Thanks, Mike. And one other thing under recreation, I've been trying to get this off the ground for about a month, and yesterday was a very happy day for me. I finally got approval to hold the 50th celebration for the Ennis Community Center. Thanks to Andy, Mike, Janice, and Angie. I got approval to move ahead with that for October the 23rd at 2 p.m. And I have a list of all the people that are still alive that worked on the first fundraising and building committees, and then have invited sisters or spouses or children to represent some of the ones that have passed in the last 50 years. So we'll have probably just about an hour-long event upstairs at the Ennis Arena. We'll be presenting a plaque that will be put on the wall downstairs, and we'll have t-shirts for sale for $25, and they'll be the same as the original shirt. A center for you in 72, and we'll add to that 50 years later, 1972 to 2022. So thanks to everybody that helped me get that off the ground. I've already got the plaque ordered. I'll get the t-shirts ordered in the next day or so. And I've given Mike a list of people to invite.
Okay, thank you. So mark your calendars, October 23rd, 2 p.m. at the Ennis.
Right, upstairs.
Anita?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, the Heritage Committee and Accessibility Advisory Committee will be meeting later this month. So I have no reports with that specific to that. On August 24th, I attended a ribbon cutting ceremony at the Lakefield Community Garden, celebrating the raised accessible garden beds. And we had Alec Denise from our accessibility committee there, as well as a number of supporters of the garden. So it's a nice opportunity for people with accessibility issues or challenges to be able to do some gardening. And then the Abbeyfield Housing group are going to be having an open house type of thing on Saturday, September 24th from 2 until 3:30 p.m. At their property on Ermitinger Street. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Andy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of things from the public health perspective. It was good to see the province come through with mitigation funding for 2023. This basically holds us whole from a financial perspective from the changes they made in the funding formula. So it basically means that even though the funding formula went from 25 local share to 30% local share, the province continues to make up the difference, the 5%. So it's good to see that in place for another year. Tomorrow, Public Health will be tabling in a public way our new strategic plan. And there's an event happening at 4 o'clock in that respect. And this past a couple of weeks, Public Health held an information session for all municipal candidates from both the city and the county, both upper and lower tier. And so we held it twice, and there was close to 40 people who attended. So it was great to see the attendance and to give both candidates who are brand new, as well as people who were running again a bit of an update on the issues from public health. I wanted to make note, Sherry would be well aware of this, of the customer satisfaction survey that Chief Mello and his group ran for our paramedic service, and a very positive response that they received from users of the service, and to take a moment to congratulate the chief and all of his staff, both those obviously that work in our township, but right across all of the county and of the city. And the last thing I'll mention, I just want to take an opportunity to do this formally, is to note that our deputy mayor has been acclaimed and will assume the mayor's position on November the 15th. So Sherry, congratulations on that. You may have noticed that she's in the chair right now, as I thought it would be a good opportunity to take advantage of this time for Sherry to gain some experience in the chair. So congratulations, Sherry, and you've done a wonderful job tonight too. So thank you.
And thanks for the opportunity, sir. The economic development, you might have heard Tasso's Pizzeria and Restaurant has taken over Mama's Pizzeria in Fowler's Corners, and they haven't got an open date officially yet, but they did have a pop-up on the weekend and sold out very quickly. So it's it sounds like good news for our township to bring in an additional restaurant up in Fowler's Corners. I am part of the Trent liaison with I'm there as a county rep, and we had a meeting yesterday to hear all things that are happening with Trent University. And through the conversation, we found out that the city is planning on delaying putting signalization at Woodland and Lakefield Road for yet another year. That intersection seems busier by the day. It's an accident waiting to happen. Consequently, the county is going to be putting forth a motion at our next county council meeting to urge the city to speed up putting the signalization there. You remember that we put a letter to the city, and I believe it was in August 2020. I'm not sure if we heard back, but obviously nothing's happened there. So they don't seem to feel that there is an urgency the way the rest of us do. So I just wanted to pass that on. There is an ag roundtable tour that is taking place on Thursday, and they're going to 3 farms in the county, and one of them is going to be at Ron Mellon's dairy farm. And I believe that there was still a couple of spaces on the bus. It's no charge. We're going from 8 in the morning till 1:30 in the afternoon, and I believe they provide lunch. So if anyone on staff or council would like to join, you might want to give Bonnie Clark a call, and she may be able to fit you in. And we're going to have an all candidates Zoom meeting, the chambers providing it on September the 29th at 5:30. People have to register to view, and they will do that through the chamber. And I'm hoping that there will be quite a few people who take advantage of the opportunity to see all of our candidates in action. And that's it for me. We are going to go into close, but before we do that, if we can pass bylaws 2022-062, which is a zoning bylaw for 8 Caroline Street, 2022-063, which is the appointment of the Compliance Audit Committee, and 2022-064, authorizing the TCSA transit agreement. And someone, Andy and Anita, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. And we will go into closed session. And thank you very much. Have a good evening. What time do we start this call, Angie?
Does everybody want to take about a 5-minute break? Would that be okay?
So,
okay.
6:21.
6:21. We'll just call in. Everybody was sent the meeting request with the phone number.
Yeah.
Thank you.